There has got to be a reason that 2 episodes in a row we've seen Superman's anger truly tested. What does that have to do with what's going on with Morgan Edge, and how is that tied into the big reveal? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk review for Superman and Lois, Episode 7, Man of Steel. And I like how they use that title, Man of Steel, because you're watching this and you're thinking, yeah, it's Superman. He's the Man of Steel. But we got that twist at the end concerning the true identity of Captain Luthor and why this episode is actually titled Man of Steel. We got a lot of interesting things to cover in this episode. Jordan getting his super hearing, Lana getting in a little bit over her head with Morgan Edge, and the big reveal at the end. What did you think of this episode? Let's talk about that in the comments. So one of the first storylines I think that they did a great job with in this episode is Jordan's super hearing and how that has now kicked in. I loved the opening of this episode. I mean, episode 6 into such a cliffhanger, Jordan just falling down on the porch and Clark like super speeding it through the sky to the fortress, and this just picked up right there. And as he's flying into the fortress, I love that shot where he's super speeding in and then everything goes into ultra slow motion because it just brought you right into the intensity of the moment. Dropping Jordan off there and him being scanned, and then Jor-El being like, yes, his super hearing has kicked in.
Yes, his mechanosensations have become significantly enhanced.
No duh. But the look of panic on Clark's face, like how can we make the pain stop? That's what I think any father would want to do for their kid. What can I do to make the pain stop? And when Jor-El says it's just going to be like you, he's going to have to learn to focus his hearing. That's when the pain will stop. And we learn later Clark was out of commission for a few weeks when his super hearing caught in, that it hurt, but it took time, and he was able to focus it, learn how to use it, and that made the pain stop. But here is Clark as a father. His kid is in pain. He wants to do anything he can to bring an end to that pain. So just the subtleties and his facial expressions and his voice, like I think he did a great job portraying that. Now, the thing that was kind of funny to me is, so you see Jordan putting on noise-canceling headphones. Here he's got half Kryptonian ears. He's developing super hearing. I do not think man-made noise-canceling headphones are going to have that much of an effect on him. But it could have been the placebo effect, right? Like he's thinking it's going to work and help, and so maybe it did. So maybe it's the placebo effect as he put the headphones on and took them off. But I liked the sound design as he took the headphones and put them on and put them off. Like you could really hear the sound being cut off, or when he takes them back off, you hear it just flood right in. They do such a great job with that. It had kind of those Man of Steel vibes. Like think about when Zod got his super hearing for the first time and he's like falling on his knees because the input is just so much and he's hearing everything, and Clark is just walking up to him. He's like,
my parents taught me to hone my senses, Zod, and it hurts, doesn't it?
And so it really did have the Man of Steel vibes from the movie as Jordan is hearing everything. Now, back in the day on the show Smallville, the episode where Clark develops his super hearing, I both hate it and love it. What's kind of weird about it is the fact that he goes blind in that episode trying to heat vision something, and he hits a kryptonite pair of earrings. The kryptonite refracts the heat back, which blinds his eyes, which causes his ears to overcompensate for his lack of sight, and that's how his super hearing kicks in. And we see that same thing. It causes him all of this pain. But here's what I liked about Smallville and him learning to hone that super hearing. Pete gets captured. He wants to save his friend, but the noise input is too much for him. So he's in the barn and he's desperate. So Jonathan and Martha come in. They turn on all of the loud things. And then Jonathan goes and stands in a corner and whispers.
Oh my God, concentrate. Concentrate on my voice.
So what he has to do is listen for the still small voice of his father and follow that voice. All that noise and all of that input coming in, and he had to learn to focus and silence that and silence himself and listen for that still small voice. Now, you know me. I love finding these theological things in these shows and in these movies. And what I love about that moment is I'm thinking of God's still small voice. A whisper requires us to lean in closer, and that's what God wants. He wants us to come closer to him. So I love that imagery of Clark quieting himself and listening for the whisper, because it's the picture that as we follow Jesus in our lives, we need to learn to quiet ourselves. We all have all of that input and all of that stuff coming in, but we can focus and learn to hear God's still small voice. And so you get a little bit of that in this episode. You have Clark and Jordan and the sink, and that's dripping. So Clark is saying, focus on one sound. He points at the sink and he wants his son to focus on that. And I think that's a pretty cool moment, and he struggles to do it there. What I liked about Smallville, again, is the involvement of Jonathan. And it was Jonathan being there in that final moment where he was able to listen to his father's voice. So I kind of wish Clark was there a little bit more in this episode, because you only get that one scene where Clark is trying to help his son. But you do see Jordan taking his father's advice, such as later he takes off the headphones to listen to the clock ticking, and that's going to be his one sound. He's going to try to shut everything else out and listen to the clock ticking. And I love this look right here, this expression on his face. You can just see the pain and feel the intensity of all of that input as he's trying so hard to filter out the clock. But what really helps him, and I thought this was interesting, but it's when he looks at the picture of Sarah on his phone, and he decides he's going to search for her voice. And again, it's that picture. We need to learn to quiet ourselves and listen to God's still small voice. And that's the importance of the Bible, that we can understand what his voice sounds like and how he talks. And so we learn to quiet ourselves and listen for that voice. So he's looking at this picture of Sarah, and he's focusing, and he's searching for her voice. And when he finds it, he is successfully able to filter out everything else and listen. And this leads to some annoying drama. Ugh. I wasn't the hugest fan of Jonathan coming into school and Sarah saying, "Where's Jordan?" And Jonathan saying, "Well, he's sick."
You're lying to me.
About Jordan being sick?
And I get it. There's some crazy stuff happening here. I understand. But when Jonathan, said what he said, she's like, "Well, you're lying to me." And she just walked off. I was like, no. I had flashbacks to Lana drama all throughout Smallville, where Lana felt like she had the right, like she was entitled to know all the personal details of Clark Kent's life. Please, let's not let somebody in the Lang family start this entitlement thing where they're just entitled to know all of this stuff. Just stop it. Stop it. But Jonathan handled himself well.
See, he's not such a bad guy.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I broke my wrist. Thanks for asking. It really sucks.
Mic drop. Oh, I love it, because building up to that, what did Jonathan say? He's like, look, he was jumped by tag, okay? And it messed him up, and now he's dealing with some headaches. But what I liked about it is, I feel like Sarah is a little bit more mature than Lana was on Smallville. Because Sarah came back and she apologized for the accusations, and then she and Jonathan were talking again as friends. And I really like that. And I think that's something that this show does well with the drama. Instead of drawing it out as this great big long soap opera type stuff, they take this drama and they fold it in, and it's character growth and development. But there you have Jordan, who came in the middle of that conversation out of context. So we're learning that Jordan has to really learn how to listen. He's hearing something out of context. So when Jonathan came home, there was accusation and there was an argument. But what was great was later when Clark was in trouble and Jordan could hear it, and he learned to hone that in so that he could follow the sound and get to where his dad was so they could help their dad, which was a fantastic scene, by the way. You have Jordan and Jonathan putting their conflict aside and working together. Then by the end of this episode, they're friends again. And so it's awesome because they introduce just enough drama that it tests this brotherly bond, but then they always seem to pass this test and come out the other side stronger. So you do see these things that bother Jonathan, how the lies and covering for Jordan is really getting to him, but you also see they really do have this bond. So even though it's being tested, they do keep coming out all right on the other side with that relationship and that brotherly friendship stronger. So I think they're doing a really good job with that thus far. Now, real quick, I think Lana is kind of interesting in this episode. And one of the things that I find interesting about what's going on with her is here she is now working for Morgan Edge. And right out of the gate, we got some tension because she's really working with Lois to try to figure out how's Morgan Edge giving people powers? What is he actually up to? How can they stop him? How can they save the world kind of deal? But in this job, she needs to bring in 5 new people for this leadership program. We, the audience, as does Lana, know that this is about human experimentation to give them powers. So she's trying to be very careful about this. And, now she has to bring in people that are going to have this done. And they really ramp up that tension by having that friend of Lana come in and say how I really need this life-changing opportunity. Could you please help me out? And in the background, you see Morgan Edge watching this. So towards the end of the episode, where she's only got 4 and not a 5th person, you see the suspicion begin to rise up in Morgan Edge. And I feel like he's testing her here, especially when Morgan, behind Lana's back, calls Lana's friend and gives her the job. So this is going to be really interesting to see where this goes, and they've put Lana in quite an interesting position. And I am convinced that later on, Lana is going to be one of those experiments. She will become powerful like Superman. She'll figure out Clark Kent is Superman, which inevitably means I think Sarah's going to figure out about Jordan and Clark Kent. I think it's all going to come to a head. But my absolute favorite part of this episode was learning the true backstory of Captain Luthor. Because it turns out that's a stolen AI from the Lex Luthor of that Earth. So that AI thinks it's talking to Captain Luthor, but in reality, the AI is talking to John Henry Irons.
You're not the Man of Steel. I am.
Oh, that was such a cool reveal. Now, John Henry Irons is part of the death of Superman and the reign of the Superman storyline. And John Henry Irons is a good dude. After the death of Superman, there's this void in the world, so he creates, kind of like Iron Man, this incredible suit with this amazing hammer that is a technological wonder to imitate the powers of Superman, and he does that to try to pick up the slack with Superman being gone, because he looked up to Superman, and so now he wanted to carry on that legacy. So John Henry Irons is a very, very cool character. So it's very interesting to kind of see the bad guy version of that. But then with the flashbacks that we got of this guy's life, we actually got to see him happy with Lois and his daughter on their Earth, and how things were going good. But then one day, Superman descends.
What's Superman doing?
What is Superman doing? Now, does that indicate that this is the first time Superman has acted evil? This is the first time Superman is blowing up buildings with his heat vision? Has he been a hero on this Earth up till this point? And if that's the case, is it what Morgan Edge is doing in our world now that ended up morphing his mind in that world? Because then I think it's 4 other super people that descend and help Superman start destroying Metropolis and destroying the city. Now, that was an intense moment, but added up, that's 5 super people there. How many people does Morgan Edge want to experiment on in his office? 5! So this is a really interesting connection. So whatever is happening now in our world on this show, it's the beginning, I think, of what happened in that world and brought John Henry Irons' world to an end.
I'm here to save the world.
It was really sad and tragic to see Lois doing that news report and Superman in the black suit rising up and melting her with heat vision, and Henry and his daughter, they were just stuck watching it on TV. The tragedy of it. So of course he wants to kill Superman out of vengeance. Of course he wants to stop this. It gives us a bigger idea of what that war was everybody was fighting. So I'm thinking Superman turned on the world, but where did those other super people come from? So that was a really interesting concept, and it introduced some new questions into everything that was going on. It was also very cool when they were going after the X-Kryptonite. You have Superman and Lois far behind, but you have Superman looking way off in the distance, seeing how his telescope vision works, how his super hearing worked. All of that I thought was action-packed, but it was pretty darn amazing when Henry and Superman faced off. The most unbelievable part is the fact that he had just met Clark. And I'm sorry, I love Tyler Hoechlin. I think he's doing a great job. But there is not much of a difference at all between his Clark Kent and that Superman. I really feel like he would have recognized instantly when he met Clark, that's Superman. Or he would have recognized instantly when he saw Superman, that's Clark. This is the dude that is married to my wife. Well, his wife from another world. But you get it. Like, are you serious right now? This is the dude. Like, it bugs me that he did not recognize him at all. But that aside, the awesome red sun lights that he had, giving off the radiation of the red sun, making Superman I don't want to say powerless because Superman survived the hits of that incredible hammer, but it definitely made him weaker where he's not really fighting back the way that he could, and it took Superman's sons showing up to save him. But that scene overall was incredible. I mean, were you like me? Did you sit forward in your seat when Henry spoke in Kryptonian? So unbelievably epic. But what's even more epic is the conversation preceding that moment.
How exactly are you planning on saving the world?
By eliminating the threat.
That adds so much complexity and layers to what's going on here.
You think that threat is Morgan Edge?
Edge is involved, but he won't be the main source of destruction.
That Morgan Edge will be a part of the destruction of the Earth, but the main source of that destruction is Superman. I mean, this is the great indication that what Morgan Edge is doing now on this show, on this Earth, is what happened on John Henry Irons' Earth. This is what happened that led to the death of his wife, Lois Lane, and his daughter, and the ending of his world. So now here he is, not wanting to fail Lois in this world. So it's interesting because now I'm not thinking John Henry Irons is really a bad guy. He's doing what he thinks is best. Now my question is, how did he manage to make it to our Earth and make it to our Earth at just the right time when Morgan Edge is ramping up the experiments that he's doing? How are these experiments going to take Superman and turn Superman over to the dark side to become the dark Superman and bring about this destruction? So I love the questions and complexity that this brings to the story. And so I don't know what's going to happen, man, in the next episode. Like, Superman says he wants to be the first to talk to John Henry Irons in that cell, but I think Sam Lane is going to talk to him first. And I think because John Henry Irons is the former son-in-law of Sam Lane from another Earth, he's going to have some sort of connection. And I'm kind of nervous what's going to happen with that connection. But what I'm really hoping is that eventually our Superman sees John Henry Irons' side of the story. I'm hoping this John Henry Irons becomes a hero like in the reign of the Superman, because I think he is a hero and he's doing his best to do the right thing. I just hope that they join forces. And I hope John Henry Irons saves our Superman from the fate of his Superman from his Earth. So I love these complex issues that this is raising up in this story. The other thing that's interesting is I don't think it's a coincidence that the last episode ended with Superman getting all angry and flying up to that dune and...
Stand down.
And we really see him rein his anger in, how much control he has to have. And how he had that talk with Jordan about trust, how the people trust him. But every time he's out there and he uses his powers, that is put to the test. He has to control that anger. So we have this epic moment at the end of this episode, where after John Henry Irons was hit by the car and he goes flying into the boxes and Superman walks up to him, in John's mind, we see the suit turn dark as he's seeing the dark-suited Superman of his Earth walk up to him. But our Superman does pick him up and raise his fist like he's going to hit him. And you and I know, one hit like that from Superman, he dead. Like, period, he is a dead man. And then Lois shows up and that reins Superman in. Now, I do think Superman would have reined himself in. I don't think Superman was going to punch John Henry Irons. I really don't think so. But again, we're seeing his anger. We're seeing him put to the test. The people's trust in him is being tested even now in this moment. So there's a reason we're seeing that. There's a reason 2 episodes in a row this has been seen in our Superman. So what is that going to lead to? How is Morgan Edge going to try to manipulate him? Is it something with the ex-Kryptonite where he can get a hold of his mind? I don't know. But there's a reason we've had 2 episodes in a row where we've seen Superman get angry, where we've seen Superman's self-control, and we've seen the flashbacks to the other Earth where he has none of that self-control. So it's very interesting what we're seeing, and I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm excited to see where it's going to go. I hope John sees Superman, his wife, his children, and the family that he has, and that this is not the same Superman from his world. What I hope is he ends up saving Superman from the fate that Superman had in his Earth. That's what I'm hoping we see happen. What are you hoping we see happen? What did you think of this episode? Where do you think it's gonna go? Let's talk about this in the comments. While you're there, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian and hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.